059. You can tag me as well at Cynthia Nanjala. Now, on Wednesday, Britain's King Charles III and Queen Camilla began their second day in the country by visiting different places, making stops at Karura Forest, where the King planted a tree in honor of the late Wangari Maathai's legacy. The royal family also paid homage to African World War potters at Kariokor Cemetery, where families of freedom fighters were invited and the surviving war veterans gifted for their brave actions.
Too many things in my program, and I get more and more behind, so I do apologize. But if I may say so, it's been such a joy to have this opportunity to meet really quite a lot of Kenyans during this visit and to discover just how things have developed and changed since I was here quite a long time ago, I hate to say. But it has been fascinating to meet all these people, the entrepreneurs, the young entrepreneurs who are doing such remarkable things here, coming up with brilliant ideas, particularly in terms of how to cope with climate change and biodiversity loss, thinking up clever solutions, nature-based and so on. Also how to develop their digital operations, coming up with ingenious ways of helping disabled people with much more affordable wheelchairs and made out of bicycle parts. I mean, quite remarkable. And also, just before I came here this afternoon, a whole lot of young people in the creative sector who contribute an enormous amount as well to Kenya's great success and indeed your reputation around the world. And for me, involved so much with the Commonwealth, I do greatly appreciate the fact, for what it's worth, that Kenya is such a vitally important part of the Commonwealth. It is above all a family of nations, and the important thing, I think, is to retain, if we can, and maintain that family feeling. So often dependent, of course, on shared values and the way parliamentary systems are operated. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you, I hope it isn't too long before I come back again. I may be on a stick by then. But if I may say so, thank you so much for the wonderful welcome you've given me and for putting up with my fractured Swahili. Anyway, it's been very special. Next time I come back, I'll try and think of some more words I can say. But in the meantime, bless you. Take care of yourselves. I shall be thinking of you. Thank you.
Now, as approximately 2.6 million students who sat for their KPSEA and KCPE examinations concluded the exams, the Education Ministry has promised to release the results before Christmas. Basic Education Principal Secretary Belio Kipsang noted that they have experienced minimum challenges in this year's examinations, while calling on education stakeholders to accord them similar support to ensure that the KCSE exams are also conducted with utmost integrity.
And I want to assure you that we are going in immediately to start marking. I would want to indicate that because of the work that is bending ahead, and our children have to report to school in January, we shall prioritize the marking of KCB so that before we break for Christmas, our parents will have known where their children will have been admitted to.
The exam that we are concluding today, we are sure this is the beginning, but as the PS has said, if you can handle 2.6 million, definitely KCSE should be an easier easy exam to strategize for.
Now, the government has announced that all first-time identification cards applicants will receive Maisha card beginning 1st of November this year in a pilot plan that seeks to introduce digital registration of persons in the country. According to the Immigration Principal Secretary Julius Bitok, those seeking to replace their IDs will also receive their new cards in a bid to test the country's preparedness to handle digital identification cards.
And in addition to that, I'm also happy to note that on the rollout of this, there are some of the things which will automatically go. One of the things that we believe will go is vetting for IDs. This will really create a lot of inclusivity, because there are people in this country who feel they've been marginalized for one reason or another, particularly in the border counties, who are required to go and vet, to queue, to appear before the DCCs around the country. And we believe that when we roll out this effectively, where we capture the details of a child when they are born, and we have their family tree diagram, then there will be no need really to subject those people to vetting, because all the information will be in our databases.
Of course, the bigger context is really service provision, human rights, and data governance, and that's the bigger frame. And if we are to go to these international fora and these continental fora with something to offer, then I think we have to make sure that these three elements of quality, essential service provision, leaving nobody behind, human rights that respect everybody's rights regardless of their identity, and also data governance.
The objective of this process is to ensure that we have more secure identification documents that conforms to best international practice. Because the current idea, as we said, and as you are aware, is 28 years old. So even in terms of security, there is need to improve, because things have really changed.
The public, that we have been able to engage with the civil society, we have sought their support, they are in agreement with us on the plans to roll out, and we are working together to ensure that we present to the public a very well thought out, a very comprehensive product called Maisha Number.
It is important that privacy by design is factored or wired into this program to ensure that Kenyans' personal data is protected, that people are able to access the system to get the services that they require, and that no person, no human being, whether they be refugees, foreign nationals, or Kenyan citizens, that they are discriminated or excluded.
All right, now let's take a look at the newspapers and what is making headlines, or who. At least I've got the Standard, the Daily Nation, and the Star. So we'll kick it off with the Standard that talks about education, the education sector, especially now that KCPE students are done. Form 1 slots nightmare, Form 1 slots nightmare, with a record number of candidates at 1.2 million learners. Who sat 1.4 learners who sat for their KCPE, and the reality of crowded facilities in schools. Parents are staring at a tough time placing their children in Form 1, even as the impact of Treasury's delay in disbursing 22 billion shillings capitation hits home. So basically what the papers are saying is that there are more students who are set to join Form 1. Problem is there are less classrooms and there's less capitation by the government to this particular high school. So question is now what happens? Because if you look at the projection that the numbers are saying, this year's candidates are 200,000 more than the figure that was recorded in 2022. So by the numbers, 22 billion shillings is the funding deficit plaguing secondary schools following delayed release of capitation by Treasury. So high schools are receiving 22 billion shillings less than what they should be receiving. These 22 billion shillings, mind you, that the government pays a particular percentage of school fees for the learners, while you as the parent pay for something else. If you remember, there was a newspaper that I handled sometime last week that talked about just the fee increase in national schools as well as extra county schools, where you're having a fee increase of up to about 20,000 Kenyan shillings for both of these schools. So basically, the amount the government was paying is reducing, or at least is delaying. So you as the parent will have to be forced to pay a bit more to facilitate for this particular child. Schools like, national schools where you pay a paltry 53,000 Kenyan shillings goes up to about 63,000 shillings or even more. For the extra county schools, so you pay an average of about 45,000 Kenyan shillings, goes again up higher to about 55,000 or even more, just depending on what school your child will be going to. So that is the biggest nightmare now that is facing not just schools, but also guardians and parents as they prepare to admit their children to Form 1 come January next year. KCP results, according to the ministry, they say will be out before Christmas. So it's also a question of, as a parent, would you have enough time to know what school your child is going to? But as they say, preparations need to start early. So this is about the time you need to start, preparing for school fees. You need to start preparing to purchase whatever equipment or whatever products, your child will be admitted to school with. But now the question on will they actually get a school is what keeps on laying in the minds of many parents as more candidates are registered, or at least did their KCP examinations. However, the government says every learner must go to school for Form 1, because remember, this is the last cohort of the 844 system. So if you failed to do your 844 system exam, or at least this year's examinations, you will have to do them somehow, because failure to which there's no KCPE anymore. What we're looking at is the KEPSEA, Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, which now looks at your transition from grade 6 to grade 7, and then grade 8, and then grade 9, before you head now to Form 1, all the way to Form 6. So you can see the system of education is changing. So it is a must, it is necessitated that all this 1.4 million learners who will start for their KCPE examinations actually get schools for Form 1, because this group will only sit their high school education from Form 1 to Form 4. Failure to which then they find themselves in a mix-up situation. So nightmare. No space, no money for extra Form 1 admissions. That's the reality. No space, no money for extra Form 1 admissions, as the CS decries less funding from the government to high schools, even as school managers themselves decry about that as well. So last year, when 1.2 million candidates sat KCP examinations, Machogo announced spaces deficit of about 90,000 in 14 counties. In other words, 90,000 candidates could have missed their chances at various schools. So that number could be a bit higher, as 200,000 more students are registered, or at least sat for their KCP examinations. Now, top of the page on the Standard as well, cost of living talks team summons the Treasury ministers. Cost of living talks team summons the Treasury ministers, and that is a story that you can find on the Standard on page 8. As the bipartisan teams continue with their talks, the National Dialogue team has summoned the Treasury and Cabinet secretaries on the high cost of living, even as the team looks to conclude their talks later this month. Now, the National Treasury roundly accused of fueling inflation and the high cost of living through exaggerated budget and ghost workers. It is expected to tell its side of the story to the National Dialogue Committee on Monday next week. The Dialogue Committee will hear from the Treasury, which has put in spot by the Controller of Budget, Margaret Nyakango, over a number of issues, including duplication of public service pay and lacking a register. So those are the two officials, or at least two ministries, that would have to answer to questions. Also top of the page, Saudi and the making of 2034 World Cup, as Saudi Arabia will be hosting the 2034 World Cup, as well as Israel kills dozens in Gaza. The conflict between Israel and Gaza continues about a month later on. Also, King honors Kenyan on World War veterans as he continued his tour. He's set to now head to Mombasa City. Now, to the start, top of the page, schools fees pain as state reduces funding. School fees pain as state reduces funding, with 6,952 shillings slashed. A school with about 20,000 or 2,000 candidates will have a 13.9 million shillings budget hole. And so this continues, of course, with the story that was just highlighted on the Standard, on just the nightmare now that high schools are looking at. It's one problem to have your child miss school, but it's also another problem for your child to actually go to school, but then the school fees is higher. So school fees paying a state reduces funding. This is likely to mean you as the guardian or parent will have to cater for more. Also, Raila State House dinner sparks up big political talk as Azimio leader Raila Odinga was at the state banquet that was held on Tuesday night in honor of their Majesties King Charles III and Queen Camilla. And why? Well, netizens on Twitter have something to say about it, as they always do. Also, why Ruto's troop may bring down Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza. That is a story that has been highlighted on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. Why Ruto's troops may bring down Governor Mwangaza. As you know, if you look at just the votes at the Senate, or at least those who are taking sides at the Senate, you're likely to predict who is lying where, but then these things, you never know, things could, just quickly change in a second. And yes, official collapses and dies after delivering exams in Tharaka Nithi, that is on the examination. Even as God leave it late, Kogalo strike to stink Shabana as Ulinzi Stars defeat Tusker. The Kenya Premier League midweek matches were on. And then finally to the Daily Nation. On polls, top senators and women representatives. Poll talks on top senators and women representatives. Approval ratings, newly elected senators are performing better than their more experienced counterparts 1 year after coming into office, according to a new InfoTrack poll that has also found that a majority of women representatives have their work cut out to win over voters. So, top names include Busia Senator Okiya Omtata, obviously. You've heard his name quite often in the corridors of courts, so he's likely to have taken the lead. Busia Senator Okiya Omtata takes the lead. He's followed by Kirinyaga Representative Kamau Murango, also Kericho Senator Aaron Cheruyot is on that list. Dan Manzo of Makueni at 52%, followed by Nyandarua John Methu. 51% is Joel Nyuto of Muranga, Samburu's senator. Lutumbesi Lelegwe at 50%, as well as Kitui Senator Enoch Kwambua. Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna is at 48%, tying with West Pokot Senator Julius Murgor. Also looking at top women representative, Turkana County Women MP Ngitit Cecilia leads, as well as Maina Jane Jerry of Kirinyaga, followed closely by Homa Bay Senator Osogo Bensuda, then to Tharaka Nithi Nduyo Susan, then to West Pokot Kasiwai Rael, Nyandarua Gitao Faith Wairimu, Kakamega's Women MP Muhanda Elsie, Pamela Njoki of Embu, Maina Betty of Muranga, and Makueni Senator Mumo, or Makueni MP Woman Representative Mumo Rose. So those are the key leading names on the top senators according to a poll that was done by InfoTrack. Question is, have you had your senator or your woman representative on that list? And if not, then how are they performing? Well, there are some of the counties, of course, which have recorded low numbers, or some of the women representatives have recorded low numbers. Talk about Kajiado, Isiolo, and Garissa women representatives. That is Sankaire Lea, Sopiato, Bonaya Mumino Golo, Siad Amina Udgond, respectively, at 42%. And of course, this comes a day after there was also the ranking on the governors, with Trans Nzoia and Homa Bay County governors leading on just perhaps those that are actually doing some work in those counties. Now, also Chronicles of Progress, housing projects spur growth in counties. According to the InfoTrack poll as well, counties that have been boosted by housing projects include Nyeri, Tharaka Nithi, Embu, Uasin Gishu, and Kisii. And then counties that have actually improved infrastructure on sports and culture is Elgeyo Marakwet, Homa Bay, West Pokot, Uasin Gishu, and Vihiga as top 5. And so this is, of course, just a survey that was done by InfoTrack and does not necessarily represent the views of the whole country, but just a section of those that were polled in that particular survey. Also top of the page, King Charles III off to Mombasa after city tours. And he concluded his tour of Nairobi with stopovers at the Commonwealth War Graves in Kariokor and the United Nations offices in Gilgil, among others. Well, the British Royals will be in Mombasa today and tomorrow for their 3rd day, and tomorrow their 4th and final day. Also, exam season is now on as KCSE students are set to begin the examinations next week on Monday, all the way to November 24th. So KCP, KPSEA done, KCSE up next. Well, those are your headlines And The Nation talks about polls, top senators and women representatives that have been polled. The Star speaks on school fees paying as state reduces funding. This is likely to affect you as a parent and guardian. You will pay more. And then finally, The Standard, Form 1 slots nightmare. 1.4 million candidates, less space in high schools. And this ultimately means there are those who are likely to miss their chance on high school, but as always, we remain optimistic. Well, those are your headlines. Right, so we're done with the newspaper now. We are about to get into the conversation of the day, but before that, we'll have to take a quick breather. When we come back, communication in marriage is the topic this morning. Reverend Anne Gashuki will be joining me in studio. She's a family therapist as well as a premarital counselor. All questions you've got about how best to communicate in your marriage, how better to communicate with your partner to ensure that you understand each other. There's some level of understanding between yourself and your partner, and to bridge that gap of communication breakdown. So that conversation coming up after the break. Stay with Morning Live. We'll be back in a bit.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
In a fast-paced world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters: your relationship with God. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we take you on a transformative journey of building your faith, without which it's impossible to please God. A journey of introspection and discovery of who you are in Christ Jesus.
For you to walk with God, you should not crumble when you come under pressure. Kama umeokoka, sema umeokoka mpaka mbele ya president, mpaka mbele ya chief justice, mpaka mbele ya kila mtu. Hiyo ndio kuokoka ya ukweli. Kuokoka ya ukweli.
Enjoy a faith-filled environment of worship and ministry of the Word every Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 a.m. with Reverend Felix Kevoy, exclusively on EBN TV.
From the 1st of October on EBN TV.
Ninakuja nikuambie mpendwa that all of us have had an encounter with the glory of God.
And every other Sunday from 11 a.m. join Bishop John Kitonga and the Redeemed Gospel Church Huruma family for in-depth teaching and preaching of the word.
Ayubu nilingoja akuwe na hasira sana, akuwe kama vile Elijah alisema, kasema hata afadhali nife alipokuwa anafukuzwa na Jezebel.
And who can forget the praise and worship? Every Sunday from 11 a.m. only on EBN TV.
Every Thursday from 8:30 p.m.
Listen, every man needs God. And every man needs to learn to humble himself before God.
Enjoy teachings from Pastor Chris Oyakilome.
Here's what the Lord is instructing you to do. Prepare yourself in the Word of God. Feed your faith. Prepare yourself in the Word.
Build your faith and get to know who you are in Christ Jesus.
Feed your faith. There's a spiritual attack of some kind through sickness. Build your faith strong.
Every Thursday from 8:30 p.m. on EBN TV, transforming your world.
With great love and joy, I specially welcome you to worship with us at Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu. This is a true family church, a true spiritual home. Redeemed Gospel Church Buruburu is home to exuberant prayers, deep and true worship. A house of prayer that will leave you feeling refreshed. Our first service starts at 7:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. and our second service starts at 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Wednesdays, we have our midweek service from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and every Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. we have our night of glory. This is the church you have been looking for. This is the place for your spiritual growth and maturity. See you this Sunday and karibu sana.
Through the morning rush and the buzz, find a voice you can trust, a voice of reason, a voice of direction, and a voice of hope.
Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Live. I'm Cynthia Nanjala.
And I'm Sammy Adika. Rise and shine, folks. We hope you are ready for an energizing start to your day.
Absolutely. We are here to bring you the latest headlines and trending news stories from the world of politics,
Business and finance, health and lifestyle,
agriculture and sports.
So grab your coffee, sit back and get ready for a fantastic morning of engaging discussions and news segments.
Join us through our social media handles, #The Morning Live. This is Morning Live, exclusively on EBN TV.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Hello, praise the Lord. My name is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza of Unfailing Love Ministries. I'm inviting you every Wednesday to join us on our program, Victory Through the Word. In this program, we teach you God's Word. We teach you to find solutions and answers to the struggles of life through the Word of God. Everything you ever go through in life, every pain, every tear, every worry, and every questions that you may ever have in this life. You may not get answers out there, but in God's Word, there are answers and there is a solution. The Bible says that God has exalted His Word above His name. In His Word, there is hope. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but His Word will always remain abide. I encourage you, engage with us as we study together, as you ask your questions and let your questions be answered as you are built and as you hear God's Word. Our church is located in Umoja, Inako, near Olobon Hotel, just off Sango Stage along Moi Drive, and the court is known as Church Court. Give us a visit and your life will not remain the same. God bless you. Let's meet every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. only on EBN television.
watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Morning Live. Now we're about to get into the conversation of the day, which, by the way, you're very much free to share your feedback with us through our social media platforms. Do tell us what your thoughts are on communication in marriage, particularly effective communication when you and your spouse, are going through conflicts, or not necessarily through conflicts, but also just on a normal day-to-day basis. And we'd love to put your point across in such a way that they can understand what you're saying, as well as you can understand what they're feeling. So that is why we are having this conversation, communication in marriage. Engage with us on our social media platforms and we'll really appreciate it. So let me introduce my guest in studio. I'm joined by Reverend Anne Gashuki, who is a family therapist as well as a premarital counselor. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, marriage is whenever you talk about marriage, it's one of those things you need to be very sensitive about, because this is basically a lifetime commitment between two persons. And once in a while, you might experience conflict, either because of something you said or something you didn't say. And that is all, or goes back to communication. So perhaps we need to understand what is this communication that is so important.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cynthia.
Yes, yes.
I'm very glad to be here today, this morning. And I would like to introduce what communication is. Today we are talking about communication in marriage.
Yes.
Communication is basically the art of listening, watching, and sharing. And it is also defined as the process of understanding and sharing meaning. That means in marriage, communication is very important. And it's an art. It can be learned, unlearned, or relearned.
So you can learn, you can relearn.
Yes.
Yes.
And, it has different meanings to different people when we come to communicating. Because in some cultures, people communicate differently.
Yeah.
And when you talk about marriage, in some cultures, men do not believe in talking with or to their wives. Where other cultures believe that everything and anything needs to be talked about. Yes.
Yeah. So, at least you've been able to explain what it is. It's the art of listening, watching, and sharing what you're feeling, something that you can learn, you can relearn, you can also unlearn some of those bad practices. So why is it so much essential in marriage, because this is, a union between two people, like I've mentioned, and you will always talk to your partner often more than not. So why is it so much important in marriage?
Yeah, thank you. So communication is very important in marriage because communication is the currency in marriage.
Yeah.
Anything of value, anything of worth depends with the input or the output.
Yeah.
And also, communication is like engine oil. It lubricates all parts and components of marriage. Yes.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the marriage itself. More often than not, you'll find, two people, even before they decide to get married, they've at least had a chance to sit down and talk about it and decide, now we want to make a lifetime commitment. So at what point does it now, with relationships, it's different because you think, it could work, it could not work. So more often than not, you're not required to deeply communicate, but still communicate. But for marriage, at what point do we now start the whole communication process? Does it start actually before marriage and tell that person, listen, this is how I am, this is what I love to do, this is what I like, so that when you get into marriage, it smoothens the whole process? Is that the case?
Communication starts before marriage. And we can talk about, how do people meet and connect?
Yeah.
Maybe we can start from there. And sometimes young people write down like the qualities they would want. And they talk about, I would want a person who is tall, somebody who can openly share. They have all the qualities. And but sometimes you cannot understand how these qualities sometimes don't work, because you find people marrying the people that they even didn't have in mind, because maybe the qualities they wanted
are not what they got.
Yes, and they just found themselves being attracted. So at that point, sometimes it's through intuition, meaning sometimes you can't tell how people start courting or start being attracted to each other.
Yeah.
Because having laid down all those maybe qualities, but sometimes the way they connect and how they connect, as much as maybe you may talk about communication in marriage or before marriage as something that you have thought about, but sometimes it happens that you can't tell how, especially when you just connect. And you connect through some things that maybe you had not even thought about. Maybe you met somebody and you found that you are being attracted. So sometimes it comes as a result of attraction.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you're actually the right person to talk to, because you're a premarital counselor as well. And so basically people that are planning on going that journey will always come to you first before they actually take the vows. So the moment they walk through your door and you're speaking to them about how they should communicate, what are some of the things that you tell them to do?
Some come, some just come with their partners. So maybe I would start with those who come to seek like advice.
Yeah.
How do I choose a marriage partner? Maybe we start from, are you prepared? Actually, we have the course that we teach. We actually have blended it, and we talk about marriage. Marriage is more important than, the how you prepare for marriage should be more than how you prepare for wedding. Because wedding is an event, but marriage is lifetime.
Yeah.
So we start by helping them to prepare, even by choosing their marriage partners. Like, what would you want? Do you have a vision of your life? Because the vision that you have about life will maybe guide you in the partner, or in the kind of a partner, that you'd want to have in life. Yes.
Yeah. So it's about the question of, are you prepared? Because, from what I've understood from what you're saying, is it can be sometimes also a moment of vulnerability. Perhaps your partner tells you something that you really didn't want them to tell you to. So it's a question of, are you prepared to handle it, even though you might not like what your partner will say?
I would say yes, because sometimes like you're saying, it's a time of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And although nowadays people can mask, they can mask. They can present in a way that maybe, communication is both verbal and non-verbal.
Yeah.
Whereby some of the things that people communicate verbally may not be who they are. Yeah. Yeah, so they can even mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so this is definitely a skill that people can always learn, as you've stated, and I'm so glad that you've also brought out the point of it can be verbal and non-verbal. So perhaps you could take us through those two types of communication, the verbal and non-verbal, so that we understand the context of it and what exactly it means.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So communication is both verbal and non-verbal. It means the what you speak, the how you speak, the when you speak matters a lot when we talk about verbal communication. And you know, and even the tone that you use, the tone. And when we talk about nonverbal, what is your body language? Your facial expression. Actually, all these speaks volume. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the what, the how, the when, and the tone for the verbal, do couples, are they able really to easily pinpoint that out, how you're speaking to me, when you're speaking to me, you know, is it the appropriate time? Are couples able to identify that?
I think that's a challenge. Yeah. That's a challenge because most of the time it all depends with, you know, communication has levels. We call them levels of communication. So it all depends with the level at which you are in communication. That is when now you are able to know, like, when do I say this? How do I say it? What do I say? Because, like I said, communication has levels. So even in marriage, people communicate in levels. Yeah.
When you say levels, you know, what exactly do you mean with levels? Does it matter the number of years you're married? What do we mean by levels?
Thank you. When I talk about levels in communication, I talk about, you know, how do you start communicating? How do you start communicating? Because some people end their communication at the basic level. Yeah. At the basic level, whereby you just ask maybe your partner, how was your day? Fine. And that becomes the end. Yeah. But when you talk about levels of communication, especially in marriage, communication should be a point of, you know, a point of connection. When I talk about a point of connection, I mean, maybe if one spouse, maybe you've not spent the day together. So you want to share also emotions. Yeah. How was your day? So when it ends at that basic level, that, how are you? I'm fine.
Just one word.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like throwing a ball and then the prayer holds it. So the communication cannot roll. Yeah. So it can end at that level. But again, when it all depends with what you say, because what you say will help the ball to keep rolling. Yes. Yeah. Because like when you start by asking, how was your day? And then maybe the spouse responds, my day was good. And then maybe you ask, how was your engagement during the day? Or maybe, you know, maybe you sense something and you are looking at the emotions, the feelings. Then the communication grows to another level instead of just how was your day.
So to what level can it grow to now? Is it now you've graduated from how was your day fine to you're now able to expand it more and say, oh, it has been fine, although this and this happened. Does it now move to that next level?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. And, you know, let me use the terms that are used in levels of communication. Yeah. We start by cliché. This is when communication is reduced to bare essentials, greetings, or formalities. Then we go to level 2, what we call reporting facts. Here, conversation takes place, but it is a conversation that is very safe and unthreatening. Maybe the couple will talk about events or people that are out there, what they found during the day. Then number 3, another level is expressing own ideas and opinions. Can you see now how it is growing? This is the beginning of getting deeper and starting to open up. And maybe saying, I don't think, when you talk about the events that happened in your workplace, you know, you are opening up. That's another level. Yeah.
So I'd love us to at least, for you to be like my crystal balls, for the reporting facts. Now that we've moved from just one word answers, we are now going to reporting facts. Is this now saying exactly what happened throughout the day and you're just sort of echoing it to your partner?
It may not be saying everything that happened, because the other level number 4, is showing feelings and emotions. So it all depends at what level the communication has gone. Because at this level, before, now when we are talking about reporting facts, like I said, you don't have to say everything. But maybe what needs to be explored in marriage is more of feelings and emotions. Because you don't have to report like, today we had a meeting, this is what the boss said. No, but you want to explore feelings and emotions. So that takes us to level 4, showing feelings and emotions. Because you want to know, this is your partner, this is somebody that you love. You not only want to know how the day was, but you also want to know their feelings and emotions. And maybe let me take you to the last level of communication, moments of complete union and sharing ourselves without reserve. That's when you find now couples laughing, enjoying each other. Because the communication has started from that basic to now.
It is evolving basically to all these 4 steps that you've mentioned. So that was on the verbal. You are able to express how you're feeling. You're able to express what is going on. You're able to show emotions and feelings through what you're saying. Now let's come to the nonverbal one. You've said it's just about the body language and facial expressions, and perhaps this is the common one. When they don't want to talk to you, they're looking the other way. So if we could expound more on that, on the nonverbal one.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I would give a case scenario where a husband had a very, had a conflict with the boss during the day in his workplace. And it was very bad to the extent that that very, very day he received a letter whereby he was to be laid off. So coming home, the husband, the wife just opened the door and the husband knocked. And then the husband went and just, in his normal way of, he went to his coach and just laid there. And, you can imagine what was going on in this man's mind. And the wife was not there to actually see, to watch the emotions, the non-verbals. So the wife just went to the kitchen and continued with her work. But guess what? That man became very depressed. He got a heart attack and he died. So it is very important to look at, to watch. That is why we say it's an act of listening, watching, and sharing information.
Why is it that perhaps the first reaction for any human being could be something non-verbal, but particularly in marriage? You've said something I don't like. It's almost like automatically my body will want to respond with either pulling away, or you'll just say it from my facial expression. Is it normal for the first reaction to perhaps be non-verbal first before we can get to the verbal way of how we are communicating?
Sorry, come up again.
I'm asking, it is natural for the human body to react fast, contrary to our feelings. My partner might say something I don't like, and then my first instinct will be to pull away from him, or for me to get angry, and he can say it in my face before I'm now able to verbally tell him, I don't like what you've said, or I don't like what you've done. Is it normal for us to just react fast with the non-verbal way before it can now move to the verbal way?
Yeah, it happens because we are emotional beings. That is where now emotions comes in. It all depends also with your personality type. There are people who react. They are extroverts. So the way of expressing their feelings is through talking. So they talk about they talk about what they are feelings. So you can tell even through the non-verbal that these people, or there is something that is wrong. So they will, emotionally, you can tell even through the facial expression. Maybe the way they look at you. So before now they speak it out. Yes.
So now, how do we improve these communication skills? Because this is definitely a skill that you can always learn. You can relearn. Perhaps how you're communicating, you can do better. So now, how do we improve these skills to ensure that we actually communicate effectively and our partners can understand us and also empathize with us and not just, ignore or not understand what we are saying? How do we improve these skills?
Yeah, maybe I would take you back to that case scenario. I'm trying to imagine if there was good communication between the husband and the wife. Maybe he would have communicated to the wife before, during the day, and they would have had a conversation such that the wife now would be prepared to handle the man emotionally, because you can imagine what he was going through. And we are not told about the past, maybe how they were engaging each other. Because maybe they also had a toxic relationship. It means that this man was emotionally depressed also. And so that's why when we talk about non-verbal, it is very important to also watch the non-verbals. Yeah, because when you are watchful about the non-verbals, then maybe you can know now what to say. And that takes us to, the importance of communication in marriage. So, like what I said, communication is the currency. It gives value to marriage. Because the way you communicate, you are either adding value or devaluing. You make life to be easier or to be hard. Somebody actually said, you can have hell here on earth, especially in marriage, or heaven, basically depending with how you communicate. So it is also an engine oil. It lubricates the marriage. When you are able to flow in those levels of communication, you enjoy marriage. Yes, you enjoy. That's when you find your partner to be a friend, not just a spouse. Yes.
And I think that is quite an important point, because you're able to fuel your marriage in such a way that you are more friends and perhaps less of just two people living together trying to make it work. So what you've talked of, it gives value to the relationship. What are some of these values that come up when we properly communicate with our spouses?
Maybe could I talk about some pitfalls so that now we can talk about the values? So allow me to talk about some pitfalls in communication when we come to marriage. One of it is criticism. That's a pitfall that can bring about poor communication. And criticism is the act of noticing a problem within your life or the relationship and turning it into the commentary of your partner's character. You measure on their flaws. So you keep criticizing. So when you criticize, then you end up having a very poor communication. And another pitfall is defensiveness. When there is defensiveness in marriage, defensiveness is a reaction to perceived criticism. So you start defending yourself. Maybe there is a conflict, and you start defending yourself. So that defensiveness is a pitfall. And sometimes the criticism is actually there, and sometimes simply it's a projection. When people get defensive, they over-explain. And then they take on a victim mentality.
Does it mean there's a wrong with over-explaining? Maybe you're just trying to properly put a point across.
It becomes a problem when you want to defend yourself. Like maybe I would give an example when the dishes are not washed. And then maybe when you're trying to over-explain, you would say, well, I would have cleaned the dishes, but when I went to clean them, there was no dish detergent. And then I went to the store and found none, you know.
Yeah, it's impossible to find none on the store, definitely. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and then, you know, another pitfall in communication when we talk about marriage, communication in marriage is stonewalling.
What does that mean?
Stonewalling is exactly as it sounds.
Yeah.
When someone in the conversation starts to act like a stonewall, you can imagine, as the person experiencing the stonewalling, it might seem like their partner doesn't care about them because they put a wall. Yeah, you can imagine one partner is this side, is on this side, the other partner is on the other side. They can't communicate. So that is what we call stonewalling. And they will notice that, you know, the partner looks away and remains silent. So when there is silence, you know, you stonewall. Because when you are silent, communication is two-way. So how will we communicate? So you put a stonewall.
It breaks down, basically. Right, so I'd love us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, we'll be speaking on the values and perhaps also on what our personalities have to do with it, because I can imagine how an introvert and an extrovert would react to situation is different, and then how can they also improve it on their end, so that when you understand your personality better, you'll understand how to communicate better. So that conversation continues after the break. I can see your questions coming in. We'll be asking them and they will be answered for sure. So we'll be back in just a bit. Stay with us.
Through the morning rush and the buzz, find a voice you can trust, a voice of reason, a voice of direction, and a voice of hope.
Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Live. I'm Cynthia Nanjala.
And I'm Sammy Adika. Rise and shine, folks. We hope you are ready for an energizing start to your day.
Absolutely. We are here to bring you the latest headlines and trending news stories from the world of politics,
business and finance, health and lifestyle,
agriculture and sports.
So grab your coffee, sit back and get ready for a fantastic morning of engaging discussions and news segments.
Join us through our social media handles, #The Morning Live. This is Morning Live, exclusively on EBN TV. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. The conversation continues on effective communication in marriage. You husband and you wife, we are trying to help you communicate better. So before the break, Reverend Anne Gashuki, who is still with me in studio, a premarital counselor and family therapist, took us through pitfalls, some of the pitfalls that are there if we do not communicate properly. You, of course, receive criticism, you'll feel defensive, you'll start over-explaining yourself, as well as stonewalling. But also she had explained the importance of communication. It gives value to your marriage, because if you don't communicate properly, it devalues your marriage. Please expound on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Effective communication is when I talk, you talk, we talk.
Yeah.
And good communication is always something that both can work on. You work on it together. So I have my role, you have my role. In communication, we have the components of communication, whereby we have a sender, we have a receiver, we have the message, we have the feedback. So it calls for both of us, both spouses, to work on. And remember, we say that communication is an art. You can learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had a poor communication, you can unlearn some of the skills, the way you have been communicating.
Yeah.
Yes.
So unlearning must be difficult, isn't it? You know, you're just used to saying it as it is, and then somebody tells you, you know, sometimes you need to hold back a bit and just empathize with your partner. So how difficult is it to unlearn? You know, we can always learn, but unlearning particular behaviors or certain ways of how we communicate, how difficult can it be?
Yeah, it can be difficulty. It can, because it all depends with, like, what vision do you have in your marriage? If you want to see your marriage working, then you own the responsibility. Somebody said, take responsibility of the change that you desire.
Yeah.
So if you want to see a change in your marriage, you want your marriage to work, then you have to work on your communication skills, whereby now, as I have introduced, effective communication is when you allow me to talk, I talk, then you talk, and then we talk. Yes.
So if I got you right, it's not just about I talking and I'm just talking and rambling on, and I'm not giving you an opportunity. And then after I've given you an opportunity as well, we now see it from the same point of view. So that's how it gets effective.
Yes. Remember in my introduction what communication is. It's the art of listening, watching, and then sharing. At that point, you can share your ideas, you can share your opinions, you can share your feelings. So when, for effectiveness in, you know, if we are talking about effective communication, it is not all about me. It is all about me, you, and us. Yes.
All right, so I would love to switch this conversation and now go to on personalities, because how we react might also be a reflection or of a projection of just the people that we are. And you know, we've got quite a lot of personalities in marriage. You find an extrovert getting married to an introvert, and vice versa, and perhaps much more as well. So you earlier talked on personalities and how much it affects just what we project on our spouses. What is it there?
Yeah, thank you. So maybe take, for example, an extrovert. This is somebody who is able to express through maybe talking. They can express themselves freely, even through non-verbal or verbal expressions. But when you talk about somebody who is introverted, this is somebody maybe who finds it very hard to express verbally and even non-verbally. So it requires self-awareness. Actually, somebody said that, you know, let me read you something that will help us to understand. You know, somebody said, I know you believe you understand what you think I said, but I don't know if you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. Taking us to listening. You know, some extroverts are quick in answering.
Oh, I understand you. Yes.
They jump and they have not heard. So, well, some introverts, because maybe of the nature, their nature, they are not quick in acting or responding. Maybe they tend to be good listeners. So when we talk about introverts and extroverts, there needs self-awareness. Be aware of yourself, and also be aware of your partner. Because if a partner is able to express themselves, then you can hear what they are saying. But some partners are introverts. They don't talk a lot. So you need to explore to know what is in them.
Yeah.
You need to create an environment for them to talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So first key thing, self-awareness, understand the kind of person that you are, what your personality is. I'm actually surprised a lot of people, you know, there's always a personality test that they can always take, but a lot of people wouldn't go through that. So as a family therapist, as well as a premarital counselor, are those one of the basic things to start on just before you actually get married, understanding your personality?
Yeah, like in premarital counseling, we have that topic on the language of love. Because the language of love, you need to understand your spouse or your partner. Understand their language of love, understand who they are. Because when you understand who your partner is, then communication becomes easier. But when you don't understand who your partner is, you may get offended because you can imagine somebody who doesn't talk much and you are there talking. You know, women, we have that stereotype of women talking 3,000 words. And you can imagine a woman getting married to an introvert who scales his words. So you may think that this person is not listening.
Yeah.
But their personality is introverted.
Yeah. So I'd love us to take a few questions that have come in, and I believe you'll just answer them one by one as we move. So somebody's asking, it is said that men communicate differently from women. Women are more open than men. Is that true? And how can we deal with that to avoid conflict in marriage?
I would say yes and no. Nowadays, we have men who talk a lot.
I wish you'd meet somebody in this studio, yeah. Yeah.
But basically, women talk a lot because we have a stereotype, like I was saying, 3,000 words. Well, men, you know, in counseling psychology, we say that women are more emotional, men are logical. So for them to get a logic, you know, in what you are saying, you may have said 3,000 words before the answer. Yes.
Yeah. So it's just to understand men are logical, women are emotional. That's just how it is. All right. Another question, is silent treatment a type of communication? Is it advisable to use silent treatment?
I would put it where I would actually refer to stonewalling as a defensive mechanism. There are people who withdraw. They don't want to talk about it. I would say it is both good and bad, because sometimes when you are silent, maybe you are dealing with an issue. And actually, we normally say, especially if you are aware of yourself and your emotions, you are a person who have anger burst. So sometimes before you talk, you can run the skill of, you can be silent, try to process, instead of just reacting emotionally. So at that point, silence is good. Or when you are in a conflict, and the conflict is heating up, and you know, sometimes it is heated up by words. The Bible says in Proverbs that, you know, the words that we use can lit a whole forest. So maybe when you know that if you continue talking, then it will heat up. The argument will heat up. So at that point, you can be silent. But again, don't be too silent. Make sure that after some time, when you are calm or you cool down, you talk, allow your partner to talk, then you talk about the issue.
Yeah. And then finally, this one sounds a bit, you know, common. How is it possible to understand that your partner is not an open person? He or she is not one to always voice it out. And for you, you've already understood, this is my partner, this is just how it is. How will communication improve now between the two?
We say that communication is an art. And sometimes the way it's like planting, you can also reap. The way you communicate to your partner may make him or her also open up. Because if you develop a good communication skill, then you may end up finding that your partner is also ready or, ready to share. Even if maybe they are introverted, or they are people, they are introverted. So the way you talk, now that you are aware of yourself and you are aware of your partner's way of communication.
Yeah.
So that awareness should help you to help your partner in communication. Yes.
All right, so Rev, I'd love to give you an opportunity to also have a final word on this key issue, because I believe when you're having problems or conflict in your marriage, be it finances, be it health, be it whatever, the first thing to do is to make aware the other partner on what is happening. So communication is the basics of every other issue that comes up in marriage. So as you get to have the final, minutes to just say something, perhaps you can talk to couples and just, make it aware to them of just how important it is for them to communicate, not just communicate anyhow, but effectively with their spouses.
Yeah, thank you. So in communication, it is very important for you to be intentional about talking to each other. Number 2, use more of I statements rather than you. Number 3, be specific when issues arise. Yeah.
Don't go around everything.
Yes. Number 4, avoid trying to mind read. Yeah. So seek for clarification and reason without being defensive. And then freely express positive feelings. Don't only express negative.
Yeah.
But learn also to express positive feelings.
Yes.
And then be willing to apologize and ask for forgiveness. The word sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It is very, very important. It's like a healing balm
to
an wound.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, before we wrap it up, I need to just ask, why is it difficult for a lot of people to apologize and just say, I'm sorry?
I would say, basically, for men, there is what we call man's ego. They want to be felt as men. So trying to bend. Remember our culture?
Does not allow us.
Or sometimes a woman is very proud.
So pride, ego, put that aside and just tell the partner what you're feeling. All right, thank you so much, Reverend Anne Gashuki, for coming in this morning, a premarital counselor and family therapist as well. I must tell you, I've learned quite a lot, and I'm hoping I'll keep these notes forever so that I can use them. But that has been our conversation this morning on effective communication. We've been able to define what communication is. It's a point where you listen, you watch, you share what you're feeling. It's an art that you can learn, you can relearn, and you can unlearn as well some of those terrible behaviors, the importance of it. What are some of these disadvantages that come with you failing to communicate, as well as just how do you improve that communication. So don't worry, if you've missed this broadcast, you can always rewatch it on our social media platforms, that is on YouTube and on Facebook on EBN TV. Let me do justice to some of those guys that have been watching and just quickly give them a quick shout out. Daniel Gashuki Ndungu says following, you must know him, as well as Anne Ndungu says, our mother full of wisdom. Watching as well. Alice Njeri has also been watching. Jen Gikunda is also watching, says following, as well as Esin Dwati. So thank you so much to all of you for your feedback as well that has been coming in this morning. The conversation does not have to stop here. Keep talking to us throughout the day on our social media platforms, we can always reach out to Reverend Ann here on your behalf so that you can get your questions answered. But that's where I want to wrap it up. Coming up at the top of the hour is Your Faith Today with Reverend Felix Cavo. You definitely do not want to miss that, as well as you can watch our subsequent bulletins later on during the day. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourselves a blessed morning and stay safe. Asante sana.
Thank you.